The vast emptiness of space stretched before the human observation vessel, its sleek metallic hull reflecting the distant starlight.
Captain J. Park stood at the bridge, his eyes focused on the holographic display tracking an approaching alien craft.
The Sovereign Collective's diplomatic ship moved with an arrogant precision that somehow felt insulting. Communication channels crackled to life.
Ambassador Krell's image appeared, a creature with sharp, angular features and skin the color of burnished copper. His translator rendered his words with a condescending tone that made the human crew exchange knowing glances. "Representatives of Earth," Krell began, "we are somewhat surprised your species has managed interstellar communication. Most primitive civilizations we encounter rarely progress beyond basic planetary technology."
Dr. Un Choi, the lead scientific advisor, raised an eyebrow. Her fingers danced across her datapad, recording every nuanced statement from the alien diplomat.
Captain Park remained calm, his hands clasped behind his back. Years of diplomatic training had prepared him for precisely this moment.
He knew provocation was a calculated strategy, not a genuine assessment of human capabilities.
"We appreciate your interest," Park responded, his voice measured and professional.
"Perhaps we could discuss potential cultural exchange?"
Krell's laugh was a harsh, mechanical sound that echoed through the communication systems.
"Exchange? Your planet's technological signature suggests you're decades away from meaningful galactic interaction. We're merely conducting a standard survey of emerging species." What Krell didn't understand was the fundamental nature of human determination.
Every dismissive word, every condescending tone was being meticulously analyzed, recorded, and would soon become fuel for a global response.
Behind the diplomatic facade, research centers across Earth were already mobilizing.
Military think tanks, scientific laboratories, and technological innovation hubs began processing the interaction.
The casual dismissal by the Sovereign Collective would become their greatest strategic miscalculation.
Dr. Choi's team started running complex algorithms, mapping potential technological trajectories based on the alien communication. They weren't just listening, they were preparing. "We welcome your observations," Park continued, maintaining a diplomatic smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Humanity has always been curious about perspectives beyond our own."
The communication lasted barely 30 minutes, but its implications would reshape galactic politics forever. Krell believed he was conducting a routine survey of an inconsequential species. In reality, he was lighting a spark that would soon become an uncontrollable inferno.
As the alien ship slowly moved away, Captain Park turned to his communications officer.
"Compile a complete report. Every single word, every gesture needs detailed analysis." The bridge crew worked silently, understanding the weight of this moment.
They had been underestimated, and humanity had a long history of transforming such challenges into extraordinary achievements. Thousands of miles away, in secure government facilities and private research centers, the first meetings were already being convened. Military strategists, scientists, and political leaders would soon turn this initial contact into a comprehensive global strategy. What the Sovereign Collective didn't realize was that their casual dismissal had done something remarkable. It had united humanity in a way no previous global challenge had ever managed. Political differences, economic rivalries, historical conflicts all seemed suddenly insignificant. The seed of a unified human response had been planted, and it would grow with a speed and intensity that no alien civilization could comprehend. As the alien diplomatic vessel disappeared into the starry expanse, leaving behind what they thought was a primitive, fragmented species, humanity was already moving. Slowly at first, then with increasing momentum, like a massive machine awakening from a long slumber. Captain J. Park allowed himself a small, knowing smile. The game had only just begun, and humanity was about to show the galaxy exactly what it was capable of achieving.
The world looked different now.
Every research center, every laboratory, every military installation hummed with a new energy. The dismissive communication from the Sovereign Collective had transformed human potential overnight. Dr. Un Choi stood in her advanced research facility, surrounded by holographic displays and complex mathematical models. Her team worked with an intensity that bordered on obsession. They were no longer just scientists, they were humanity's first line of defense. We need something they won't expect, she muttered, analyzing quantum computational designs that would have seemed impossible just weeks earlier. General Sung Huang walked into the laboratory, his military uniform crisp and precise. He understood that technological innovation would be their primary weapon. Traditional military strategies would mean nothing against an advanced alien civilization. How close are we? He asked, studying the intricate design spinning in the holographic projections.
Un pointed to a complex neural network diagram.
We're developing adaptive weapon systems that can learn and modify themselves in real time.
The Sovereign won't understand our approach because it defies their logical combat frameworks. Across the globe, similar conversations were happening. Universities redirected research funds.
Technology companies paused commercial projects to contribute to national defense.
Silicon Valley's brightest minds were now working on technologies that could potentially save humanity. Quantum computing labs worked around the clock. Artificial intelligence researchers developed neural networks capable of processing alien communication patterns. Military strategists studied every microscopic detail of the initial alien interaction. Universities that once competed now collaborated.
Engineering departments from MIT, Tokyo University, and Berlin Technical Institute shared research in unprecedented ways.
National boundaries seemed trivial compared to the potential alien threat.
In a secure facility deep within the Rocky Mountains, a team of robotics engineers developed a new class of adaptive combat machines. These weren't just robots, they were intelligent systems designed to learn and evolve during conflict.
We're creating something beyond traditional weapons, explained Dr. Park, the lead robotics researcher. These systems will think, adapt, and respond faster than any human or alien combat unit. The global economic system underwent a radical transformation. Stock markets redirected investments. Countries that once had conflicting interests now pooled resources. Military budgets expanded. Research grants multiplied exponentially. Satellite networks were upgraded. Communication systems were reinforced. Every technological infrastructure received immediate enhancement. The casual dismissal by the sovereign collective had awakened a sleeping giant. Un's team made breakthrough after breakthrough. Quantum communication systems that could potentially bypass traditional communication limitations. Adaptive armor technologies that could change molecular structure during combat. Weapon systems that could reconfigure themselves mid-battle.
General Huang reviewed the progress with a sense of growing confidence.
Humanity wasn't just preparing for defense, they were preparing to demonstrate their true potential.
We're not just building weapons, he told his strategic planning team.
We're building a message. A message that says humanity won't be underestimated. Research facilities worked in shifts that never stopped.
Scientists, engineers, military strategists, and technologists collaborated in ways never seen before. The initial alien communication had done something remarkable, it had united humanity with a single, focused purpose.
Prototype weapons were developed and tested.
Simulation scenarios were run thousands of times. Every potential alien combat strategy was analyzed, dissected, and prepared for.
The world watched and waited. News networks provided constant updates about the technological preparations. Public sentiment shifted from fear to determination. Humanity was no longer just defending itself, it was proving its worth to the galaxy.
Dr. Un Choi looked at her team, her eyes reflecting both scientific curiosity and a deeper, more primal determination. They weren't just preparing for a potential conflict. They were rewriting the rules of engagement.
They think we're primitive, she said quietly. We'll show them what humanity can truly achieve.
In research facilities, military bases, and technology centers around the world, humanity was getting ready.
The sovereign collective had made a critical mistake, they had awakened a species defined by its ability to adapt, innovate, and overcome. The first wave of sovereign attack ships appeared like dark, metallic shadows against the starry backdrop. Commander Wu Jin watched the holographic display, his hands steady on the control panels. Years of preparation had led to this moment. Incoming vessels, reported Tactical Officer Yun Park. Her voice was calm, almost monotone. 12 primary battlecruisers, multiple support squadrons. The Sovereign fleet moved with calculated precision, believing their technological superiority would crush human resistance in minutes. They had no idea what awaited them. Wu Jin's fingers touched a series of complex control interfaces. The Human Defense Network, a system developed in absolute secrecy, began to activate. Quantum adaptive defense mechanisms powered up across multiple planetary and orbital platforms. Engage adaptive shield protocol, he commanded. The first alien energy weapons struck human defensive positions. But instead of causing damage, the human shields absorbed the energy, instantly analyzing its frequency and molecular composition. Within milliseconds, the shields reconfigured themselves, rendering the alien weapons completely ineffective. Sovereign commanders watched in disbelief. Their most advanced weapons were being neutralized by a species they had considered primitive. Yun began targeting sequences that seemed almost impossible. Quantum-entangled weapon systems locked onto sovereign ships with mathematical precision impossible to predict or dodge. Each targeting solution was calculated in nanoseconds, adapting faster than alien defensive systems could respond. 3 sovereign battlecruisers exploded within the first 15 minutes of conflict. Not from direct weapon strikes, but from their own systems being turned against them through complex algorithmic warfare. "They're using our own technological signatures against us," a sovereign tactical commander reported, his voice trembling with growing panic. Human combat drones, intelligent, self-learning machines, moved with an unpredictability that defied traditional warfare models. They didn't follow standard attack patterns. Each drone made independent decisions, creating a combat strategy that was fundamentally alien to the Sovereign's rigid military doctrine. Wu Jin watched the battle unfold like a complex, living chess match. Humanity wasn't just defending, they were demonstrating a completely new form of warfare. Orbital platforms released electromagnetic pulse clusters that systematically disabled sovereign communication networks. Advanced human satellites, which looked like simple communication devices, transformed into sophisticated combat platforms. Total sovereign fleet reduction at 47%, Yun reported. Her voice carried a hint of professional satisfaction. What the Sovereign didn't understand was humanity's core strength, adaptability. Every alien weapon was studied, understood, and then neutralized. Every attack was transformed into an opportunity for technological learning. The battle wasn't just happening in physical space. Complex cyber warfare systems invaded sovereign ship networks, turning their own technologies into vulnerabilities. Advanced AI systems developed by human researchers worked simultaneously across multiple combat dimensions. Commander Wu Jin understood this was more than a military engagement. This was a demonstration of human potential. "They believed we were primitive," he said quietly. "Now they'll learn differently." Within 2 hours, the Sovereign attack fleet was reduced to scattered, damaged vessels. Their most advanced technologies had been comprehensively defeated by a species they had dismissed as technologically irrelevant. Tactical reports would later show something unprecedented: humanity had not just defended itself, but had done so with minimal losses. Every sovereign attack had been predicted, analyzed, and neutralized before it could cause significant damage. As the last sovereign ships retreated, a message was sent not through traditional communication channels, but through the very fabric of their defeated technological systems. A message that said, humanity was here. Humanity was ready. Wu Jin looked at Yun. No words were needed. They both understood what had just happened. The first conflict was over, and humanity had done more than survive. They had announced themselves to the galaxy. Admiral Minesio Kong stood on the bridge of the flagship, her eyes scanning the holographic galactic map. The human campaign had transformed from defensive strategy to full-scale offensive operation against the Sovereign Collective. "Target acquisition complete," reported Jisoo Lee, the strategic analysis officer. Her fingers danced across complex computational interfaces that seemed to breathe with intelligent anticipation. Humanity had learned something critical in the first conflict: the Sovereign's greatest weakness was their rigid military structure.
They understood technology but failed to comprehend the human capacity for unpredictable adaptation. The first wave of human strike teams didn't use conventional military approaches. They used something far more dangerous: psychological warfare combined with technological disruption. Each targeted system was not just attacked, but systematically dismantled in ways that created maximum psychological impact. Human combat drones moved like liquid shadows through sovereign defense networks. They weren't just machines, they were intelligent systems that could learn, adapt, and modify their strategies in real time. Where sovereign systems expected linear responses, human technologies introduced chaotic, unpredictable elements. Communication network infiltration at 67%, Jisoo announced, her voice calm and professional. Admiral Khan watched as entire sovereign communication infrastructures began to collapse. The attacks weren't just technological, they were designed to undermine the alien civilization's sense of security and predictability. Advanced AI systems developed by human researchers worked simultaneously across multiple combat dimensions. They didn't just attack systems, they understood them, learned from them, and then transformed them into vulnerabilities. Sovereign military commanders watched in growing horror as their most secure installations were systematically compromised. Human technologies seemed to anticipate their responses before they could even formulate a strategy. Quantum communication networks allowed human forces to coordinate with a speed and precision that the sovereign couldn't comprehend. Every attack was a complex, multi-dimensional chess move that seemed to predict and neutralize potential counter-strategies. "We're not just fighting," Admiral Khan told her command team. "We're sending a message about human potential." The Galactic campaign wasn't just about military victory. It was a comprehensive demonstration of human adaptability, technological innovation, and strategic thinking. Sovereign research facilities were targeted not for destruction, but for comprehensive data extraction. Human teams didn't just want to defeat the enemy, they wanted to understand them completely. Psychological warfare became a critical component of the human strategy. Communication channels were hijacked, filled with messages that systematically undermined sovereign military morale. Every transmission was designed to create confusion, uncertainty, and internal doubt. Jisoo's analysis systems worked like living, breathing entities. They didn't just process information, they anticipated, predicted, and transformed data into strategic advantages. "Sovereign command structures are experiencing complete systemic breakdown," she reported. The clinical nature of her statement masked the revolutionary nature of what was happening. Human strike teams moved through sovereign territories like ghosts. They weren't just destroying infrastructure, they were rewriting the fundamental understanding of warfare. Entire sovereign planetary defense systems were turned against themselves. Their most secure communication networks became conduits for human strategic information. What seemed like random technological disruptions were actually carefully orchestrated deconstruction of alien military capabilities. Admiral Khan understood this was more than a military campaign. This was humanity's statement to the galaxy, a declaration that they would not be underestimated, controlled, or dismissed. "Continue systematic deconstruction," she commanded. Her voice carried the weight of a species that had been underestimated for too long. As the campaign progressed, something remarkable happened. The sovereign collective began to fracture from within. The human approach wasn't just about military victory, it was about creating fundamental systemic collapse. The stars watched silently as humanity rewrote the rules of galactic engagement. What had started as a dismissive first contact had transformed into a comprehensive demonstration of human potential. The halls of the United Earth Council were silent. President Hyejin Kim stood at the massive window, watching the holographic displays showing the final stages of the galactic conflict. Diplomatic Representative Sukwon Park entered the room, carrying a communication transcript that would change everything. The sovereign collective had been comprehensively defeated. Not just militarily, but fundamentally. "They're requesting full surrender," Sukwon said, his voice carrying a mixture of disbelief and quiet triumph. The war hadn't just been about military victory. It had been a complete transformation of galactic power dynamics. Humanity had proven itself not just as a survival species, but as a fundamental force of innovation and adaptation. Sovereign communication networks had been systematically dismantled. Their most secure military installations were now human research sites. What had begun as a dismissive first contact had become a complete reconfiguration of interstellar politics. The cost had been significant. Millions of human lives had been lost. Entire cities on Earth and colonial planets bore the scars of conflict. But something more profound had emerged, a unified human identity that transcended previous global divisions. President Kim reviewed the final strategic reports. The human campaign had done more than defeat the sovereign collective. They had demonstrated a technological and strategic capability that would reshape galactic understanding for generations. "We're not conquerors," she told her advisory team. "We're demonstrating what's possible when a species refuses to be limited by external perceptions." Sovereign diplomatic channels sent increasingly desperate communications. Their once proud military structure had been completely destroyed. Every technological advantage they believed they possessed had been systematically neutralized by human innovation. Research teams were already analyzing sovereign technologies. What had been seen as an existential threat was now becoming the greatest technological opportunity in human history. Sukwon presented the final surrender documents. They weren't just legal papers, they were a testament to human potential. The sovereign collective was submitting not just militarily, but philosophically. They're requesting preservation of their cultural archives, Sukwon noted. The irony wasn't lost on anyone in the room. The civilization that had once dismissed humans as primitive was now begging for mercy. Quantum communication networks began broadcasting the surrender across multiple star systems. Humanity wasn't just a species anymore, they were a fundamental galactic force. President Kim understood this was about more than military victory. This was a moment of collective human achievement. Every research center, every technological innovation, every strategic decision had contributed to this moment. The scientific community was already preparing. Sovereign technologies would be studied, understood, and potentially integrated into human systems. What had been an enemy was now becoming the greatest research opportunity in human history. "We will be fair," President Kim announced to her team. "But we will also be clear. Humanity will not be underestimated again." Diplomatic protocols were established. The sovereign collective would be allowed to maintain their core cultural systems, but under strict human oversight. It wasn't about destruction, it was about fundamental restructuring. Sukwon looked at the surrender documents. They represented more than a military victory. They represented a fundamental shift in galactic understanding. Research teams were already preparing massive documentation projects. Every aspect of the sovereign collective would be studied, analyzed, and understood. The species that had once tried to dismiss humanity was now becoming the greatest case study in human scientific history. President Kim walked to the window, watching the holographic displays showing human vessels moving through previously sovereign-controlled territories. Something fundamental had changed. "We are not just survivors," she said quietly. "We are innovators. We are adapters. We are humanity." The stars seemed to watch silently. A species that had once been considered insignificant had transformed the very understanding of technological potential. The sovereign collective's dismissal had become their greatest mistake.